Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have David Auge. He is an environmental philosopher. He has been active in the area of sustainability for over 25 years and is a certified sustainable development professional, a certified energy manager, and a certified hazardous material manager. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much for the invitation to be here.
You're, you're welcome. Welcome to the show, David. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about building sustainable societies and understand more about what needs to be done to protect the only planet that we have. So we'll talk about all this, but before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, David, so that people understand who they are listening to.
Thank you very much once again for the opportunity to be here. The opportunity to look into sustainability, I can best track back to the year 2001. And in my book, I point out the meeting I had with the Greater uh, Houston Society for West Pointers. We had a speaker during that particular event who was talking about the upcoming response to 9/11 here in the United States. And he brought the point down to the concept of two words. He said in his presentation that the understanding of the conflict was going to be one where its history would be brought to the surface as something paramount in our Western understanding of what's going to happen. It has a link to sustainability because he said the word its history in a Western mind setting is usually defined as it's irrelevant, it's not of concern. But in contrast, he says its history among the rest of the world in many ways means it is relevant. It has something of merit. Now, from a sustainable society appearance, the word its history has to do with environmental philosophy. It has to do with trying to understand that at this particular point, we can look at what's happened behind us before this particular point as irrelevant. History, if you would, is relevant. And everything in the future would be, or at the present, would be relevant. It brings to the surface two different types of ideas called mimesis and poiesis. My book and the understanding of making sustainable society, I think, hinges upon our understanding that mimesis, that is, what has happened in the past, is of relevance, something we can learn from, something we can grow from, is in a better position than poiesis, which is an understanding that this is all just a bunch of raw materials upon which we can then make from what we have and these raw materials something into the future. We have found ourselves losing the mimetic understanding of what we're dealing with. Now, going back to the wars that have followed the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, there was in the concept of most Western military leaders an idea that we can handle this in 1 year. We'll take the raw materials present, put everything in place, and be done with it. But we've had year after year, actually over 20 years, a 1 year battle fought 20 different times because of that failure in understanding. That's what I'm trying to bring to this debate and trying to bring this to the understanding of sustainability, in that we have to have more of a mimetic understanding from a biomimicry understanding of societies, what actually is something we could repeat. Uh, that's the reason why I bring to the table the society of honeybees versus the society of desert locusts. I think we can learn from both of these.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll talk about that. But I want to understand better about the relevance of history for sustainability and for building sustainable societies. How does history matter about sustainability? We thought it is more about fossil fuel and the fight for much more cleaner fuels.
Hmm, a good question. What can we learn from history about sustainability and bring it to the table? One of the certifications I have is as a leader in environmental. It has to deal with the construction, the architectural efforts built on the planet. Buildings that will last for more than 10 to 15
Your audio is a bit muffled. Can you check? Yeah,
years.
I'll check from my end. Yes, can you try it?
Okay,
Yes, now it's back to normal. Yes,
okay.
thank you.
LEED, or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, is an effort from architects to try and build buildings that are more sustainable. Much of that has a historical link. The position of buildings, the opportunity to enhance the access to the air in the surrounding area. All of those were historically relevant, historically strong in making decisions about a sustainable building. Many many structures I can imagine both in India and within Europe have lasted for hundreds and multiple hundreds of years because the architects back then made the decision. Now, that's something we've learned in Leeds, and I think that's something we could learn from a societal standpoint too, from looking at insect communities that have done extremely well over the years.
Absolutely. So let's understand a bit from the insects themselves about bees and locusts. People know about bees, but they are also afraid of bees lest it's stings them. But locusts, almost a lot of people do not like to see them around, and they are afraid of them. Help us understand then how should we get bees and locusts into this whole debate about sustainability.
Okay, a good question. Why should we bring these two insects to the forefront? Primarily because they're so different in how humanity looks at them. If you look at a honeybee, it's usually seen as the most favorable of insects that we could have. The ability of the insect to pollinate, to just allow the agricultural operation to flourish as it does. That is usually the good insect, the good community, the opportunity to see this insect who's been able to overcome the paradox of the commons. The paradox of the commons is where we have this shared pasture, this shared resource, and the bee shows us how it can utilize that to the greatest benefit. They're extremely efficient. They're extremely strong in their ability to demonstrate to humanity just that overcoming of the paradox of the commons. Now, the paradox of the commons is an idea that we have just this free resource out there. It sounds great, it's ideal, we can all use it, but we need to use it within reason. And for some reason, the bee is able to demonstrate that to us. And for that reason, we usually grasp the honeybee as an example of industry, of utilization of resources intelligently. Now, in contrast, you have the locust. Now, locusts are hated because usually when a locust swarm is on your your fence line, your national boundary, your nation is going to suffer tremendous, overwhelming catastrophe because of it. The locust is not going to be the moniker of any quote sustainable society, but there's many things to learn from it as well. You see, the locust actually exercises and pushes the understanding of the carrying capacity or the idea of a maximum sustainable yield within society. It pushes that envelope. It takes the opportunity to make us think about greed, about avarice, about consumption to the point where there's total destruction of what we have in front of us. Because of that, many people in the back of their mind will hate a locust. But there's something to learn from this insect because of the two, one we have to continue to suppress, that is locusts, with an international organization to do so. The other one we have to enhance because there are mites, there are other things that keep the honeybee from being able to flourish. The contrast of those two is where we can learn something from a mimetic standpoint of sustainable societies.
Right, absolutely. Very uh, valid points here, uh, David. But one thing I want to understand for the audience is that they will have the questions that bees do not need resources like human beings. They don't need mobile phones. They don't need to go to Mars. There are so many things we individually need. So their desires are limited, their needs are limited. They need to just think of survival to eat. Like humans need everything that is possible and wants to explore that is not possible today but will be possible tomorrow. How can we compare both them and follow their path? We have to find our own path.
That's why understanding both insects is important, not just honeybees, not just locusts, but both of them. Because just like you pointed out, we don't have an instinctual desire for existence like a honeybee and a locust does. There's not an instinct. There's actually a decision, a choice, a search for what we're going to do, and that search is an important part of the entire equation. So we can learn from something provided by both of these concepts, these insect communities, that will help us to move forward. There's something gained by both, not something lacking with the desert locust and gained with the honeybee, but gained from both. And that's kind of a key part of what I'm trying to bring to the surface is the fact that we have to learn um, from both, but not mimic just one or the other.
Right, right, David. So the way the debate about sustainability, about climate change, all these things is going on, what is your view on this? A lot of brilliant minds are working on this, but why is it that we seem to be losing the plot? Is it because there's a lot powerful lobby which is very strong and they want to keep things the old way, and rest of the debate can keep on happening? What is the problem here? Why is it the world not following the path of sustainability that it should actually do?
Hmm. Well, AJ, you bring a good idea to the table in asking that question because it seems like we have this already set understanding of the word sustainability, that this particular way to get there is known and that's the way we need to go. I am not a prognosticator, but I am an individual that believes that the word sustainability is more normative in its approach than it is descriptive. Excuse me here. Normative in the fact that it's not a set understanding. It's something like beautiful. It's something like acceptable. Something is more or less sustainable because it presents to the community something in contrast to something else. So sustainability is not a goal, but a journey. And in understanding the importance of that journey, we have to understand that we're going to get there through fits and starts. There are going to be some acceptance and some denial of every single approach that you put on the table. And politics, like you mentioned, is going to be an argument, if you would, of these different opportunities as we move forward. There will be pluses, there will be minuses, there will be successes, there will be failures, but they provide to us opportunities to to see this sustainable concept as normative and not as a journey that now we're there. No, we're going to continue to move in that direction.
Right. Why is it that only the poor people or the middle class people who have their own busy lives are made to think more about these concepts of climate change, sustainability? Why is it that the rich are only talking about in the right forums but actually not doing much about it? Is it only the poor man's concern, or is it also the rich man's concern? And is it about the future? Because future they will say we can go to Mars. We are already working towards that. So what is sustainability all about? Till when is there a deadline to that, that okay, till this time we need to preserve Earth, and then we will have many Earth. So many exoplanets, we can go to any of these.
Hmm. So you're asking whether the concept of sustainability is only for one particular class or element of society and not for
Right,
everyone.
right,
Well, I guess it would go back to the definition of sustainability. If it's a normative concept, one that describes a better or an improvement in the society we currently live in, I would say no. If it is, though, a specific goal out there that once arrived at will say, yes, we're now done, then then I think we have a false concept of what sustainability really means. Trying to say that it's one class as opposed to another, I think also confuses the idea that it's a goal and not a journey. So I think that particular concept of explaining it, just like you do with the locust or just like you do with the honeybee, it's a journey that those two insect communities have found themselves on as well.
Right, right, David. So, in terms of if we look at the environment today, how should we look at it? Do you say if I request you to look at it, say 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, where will we all be? See, you have 10 grandchildren. How do you see the future for them?
Hmm. Well, I wouldn't have 10 grandchildren if I didn't see the future with the positive aspect of its opportunities that are there and not the negative understanding that there might be failures as well. But there will be failures, but there will also be successes. If I would only emphasize one side, I think I would do to the detriment of my children as well as to the environment. Many times, the opportunities, pardon me, the opportunities that we see are in somewhat obscured in the short term because we haven't had an opportunity to look far enough in the past to what we have.
Right. So, David, if all the brilliant minds who are managing the affairs of our planet, they say, David, you are absolutely right. Let's learn from the locusts, let's learn from the honeybees, get started saving the planet. How do we get started then? What is the way to get started? Should we just forget about electricity? Should we forget about everything else? Look at the history, look like they used to live? Or is there a middle ground for us to live the way we are and still can find sustainability?
Is there a middle ground to which we could live and find ourselves journeying to sustainability? Is that the question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, one of the things about learning from these two extremes of honeybees and locusts is to see the strengths of each and the weaknesses of each. The journey is a philosophical one. Um, there is a quote that I include frequently in that book that says, "He who has a why can handle almost any how." Those individuals with a why to be sustainable at all, just like um, Viktor Frankl tries to point out, he does so in logotherapy. You can take this journey with the idea that you've got a purpose for it. The title of the book, Man's Search for Sustainability, is parallel to man's search for meaning. To be sustainable for him was to whether to live one more day within the Nazi concentration camps where his death was of paramount importance to the Nazis and his life was of paramount importance to him. It brought him to the point of saying, what will I sustain? Will I sustain my life? Will I sustain for another day? Will I live be able to get the best um, effort from this particular day and going forward? So, do we have a journey there? Well, that journey is going to be taking as humans the understanding of why be sustainable at all. It's not going to be a scientific answer. It's going to be more of a philosophical answer.
Absolutely. From man's search for meaning to your book, Man's Search for Sustainability. Who is this book for, David?
It's for those that are searching. The book is for those individuals, and as I write in the preface of it, the children that I've had, I want them to search continually for what to sustain, because once again, I see it as a normative concept. Something is going to become less or more sustainable based upon their pursuit of it, the pursuit of a society, the pursuit of making decisions, whether you're very wealthy or very poor, for the next day that you've been given. What are you going to do with the water resources, the air resources, the food resources that you have? And are you going to do it just for yourself, or are you going to do it for the generation after you? Keeping them in mind and looking at it because there's a why bigger than yourself that you're pursuing.
Right. And you said that if I understood it correctly, you look at the future with much more uh, positive way, whatever, because the number of events that are going up, it's going up, but you look to be quite optimistic. A lot of people are not. What is your reason? What are your reasons behind your optimism? Do you think the future generation, the next generation, or in the coming years, people will get much more conscious of this, or their mind will suddenly give them better ideas?
Will people become more conscious of this or have better ideas? Why am I positive in the outlook? I think many times the search is the reason for being positive. When you have people that are actually exploring and looking for the answers to these things, both in a scientific vein as well as in a philosophical vein, you will have fruit born from that effort. Many times it's the conflicts that make us grow the most, it's the difficulties that help us become stronger. One of the stories I bring out in the book is a son of mine. He was at the age of 3 when we found that he had childhood leukemia. And for a period of about 3.5 to 4 years, he was undergoing a tremendous amount of chemotherapy treatment. My family, my wife and I, were confronted in the beginning of that by our social worker, who said to us, "You are going to find yourself in this situation, perhaps going to be divorced or at least going bankrupt because of the ordeal you're about to face." We sold everything we had that wasn't owned by us as well. We looked at each other and held each other closely as we began that particular journey. And as we went through those 3.5, 4 year period of chemo and watching our son lose his hair and his body become frail, um, through that, we became stronger. And so did our family. The ordeal, the struggle, the difficulty actually was of our benefit, not to our detriment. We we grew from that. And a sustainable society doesn't look at difficulties in many ways as ordeals that will destroy them, but perhaps ordeals that will strengthen them.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is much to learn from you, David, about all these things, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn about all these things from you, from your book, know more about you. What is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I have a website called davidaugesbooks.com. On that website, you'll have a chance to find out a little more about the concept of man's search for sustainability. Also, there's a one-page summary for those that sign up and provide me their email address that shows the contrast between honeybees and desert locusts, how they manage stress, allocate work, make decisions, and communicate. Because in those particular day in and day out routines, they're going to learn more about sustainability. And I'm going to be able to hopefully communicate to them the benefit from these two
Wonderful,
communities.
wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Great. Thank you, AJ.